Hey everybody, Ray Bango again, here at Wicked6 Cyber Games. The games are going on, they're amazing. The teams they're out of control. I'm here with Peter Kilpe, the CEO and executive editor for the Cyberwire. And so it's being a media company. Obviously, I think you have some challenges. You have to go out there proactively engage companies that might be in turmoil, and you have to try to get some really good relevant information out of that. How do you do that when I think of some of these companies that unfortunately they've had breaches or they've been compromised, and a lot of them really don't want to talk.
Right. It's actually quite difficult. A lot of what we do is looking through open source research. We have a network of researchers, associates around the world who are able to provide perspectives on these kinds of events that where we don't really have to talk directly to the vendor, the kinds of thing, or the person that, or company that may have been breached. Those kinds of oftentimes a company gets in a protective mode when that kind of thing happens, and our audience, decision makers, CISOs, and others, oftentimes they don't need that direct information from the company. Just a good perspective on what's happening, some kind of concise synthesis about the problems that they face is more important.
Interesting. And so you mentioned that you have several open source intelligence sources. One of the questions that I think a lot of people always ask is, how do you vet the information that you're getting? Because if you're just getting stuff from the internet, how do you make sure that it's accurate? How do you make sure that when you come up with a very comprehensive, in-depth report, that all that stuff is actually factual?
That's hard too, and usually it's as simple as making sure that you're vetting, looking at multiple sources, getting multiple perspectives all the time, making sure the things that you're saying are factual and accurate by lots of double checking. We get a lot of noise. We live today in the age of content marketing, where every news or every cybersecurity vendor wants to be your news source. There's a proliferation of cybersecurity publications. There's lots of pay-to-play, content that's out there. How do you know if it's real? How do you know, if it's reliable? It's really having the relationships and being able to talk to multiple sources and distill that content. Our program in particular, we don't do a lot of product talk. Really, our rule of thumb is something to say, not something to sell, and that's endeared us to the decision makers and folks in our industry who really use us on a daily basis. We're there, a daily podcast, a daily briefing. People are listening to us as part of their jobs.
So generating the content, and it's challenging, I know it is. Finding the right topics, finding the right guests. How do you go about identifying the areas that you want to cover? And because obviously some of them are going to be reactive. You're going to find something, a breach. But I'm sure that you're proactively looking for great topics that the security community can take advantage of and maybe even learn from.
Yeah. Basically, like you said, part of it's reactive. There's things that are taking place in the news every day. Our audience wants to understand what those are, what the implications are, get various perspectives from professionals in the industry. But also, you can see as the problem of cybersecurity evolves, there become many niche topics, whether you're talking about industrial control systems, law and policy, workforce matters. We start to, as those areas of security start to evolve, we start to follow them and build a capability to be able to tell stories in that arena, whether it's new shows, new publications, ad hoc articles, interviews. We just try to follow where the industry is going, where the needs are. We see a lot of needs even in the public sphere where people are trying to understand the implications of various kinds of laws and policies and regulations, and we try to make that accessible to people.
As a media company, I'm assuming that sometimes you're going to run into the conundrum of, do we disclose or not? And if you disclose, obviously, there's dramatic impact on occasion. Somebody may have dropped a 0 day, and maybe you're the first person to know about it, and the other company doesn't. How do you balance that out? How do you figure out at what point should we responsibly report on something that's going on?
Often, our organization is not the first to respond to something like that. We don't traffic in like gossip or the latest news, if we can't vet it ourselves immediately, we take some time to try to understand what's happening. But it's a really important question because I was having this conversation with a number of the threat intelligence organizations that we work with just this morning, and it's a tough balancing act. Most organizations who are doing responsible disclosure are talking to those vendors. They're trying to build relationships with them. The vendors themselves are trying to determine, how they're going to react. Are they going to go, uh-oh, and just, try to fix it as quickly as possible and let things go? Or are they going to use it as a learning opportunity and even a public relations exercise where they can demonstrate to the public, to their customers, that they're actually taking this breach or incident as an opportunity to learn about security and to understand, build a relationship with the public and build that trust that they're learning too. It's impossible to be, fully protected. And I think companies are starting to recognize that, and customers and the public at large is understanding that as well.
And so you mentioned the building that trust. How much do you feel that the coverage you provide on issues, some complex issues, actually helps to build greater trust with the community, and also affects change within the companies that might be affected?
I think the trust has come, at least for us, with a long-term relationship of being accurate. Again, not trafficking in gossip or in sort of thin kind of news stories. And over time, especially trying to avoid giving sponsors, advertisers, vendors undue voice. Again, we live in the age of content marketing, and it's hard to tell the difference sometimes between a legitimate news story and something that a vendor is putting out there to tell you that you really just need their product. Because of the balanced hand we've had in being able to share that kind of information, and our propensity to just kind of put aside the selling part, has really established trust with the audience, and we're very grateful to see how many security leaders are listening to us and reading us every single day.
That's great. I think that does help to distinguish you. There's too many publications that they're obviously very focused on the bottom line. Understandably so. I think everybody has to pay the bills, but there is a fine line between obviously paying the bills and maintaining that ethical reporting that people can depend on, they can trust. So I'm glad you're going down that path. Peter, thank you so much for spending some time with us and talking about it. So again, Peter, the Cyberwire, check it out.
It's my pleasure, thank you.